Just a quick here. Welcome to my storybook. Today is the part two of this book called Dog Whisper, The Rescue. Today on part two, I'm going to be reading chapter 3 and chapter 4 in this book. Chapter 3. This time, part of her knew that it really was only a dream, but she still felt as though she was drowning. The waves seemed bigger than ever, and there were rocks around, too, because she kept crashing into them with heart. It seems to take forever, but finally she managed to wake herself up. She pulled her quite closer, shivering and scared. Water seemed to be pouring all over the place, and at first she was very confused. Then she realized that it was raining outside. Raining wasn't scary. She had probably just had the dream again because of the sound of it pounding against the roof. It seems to be very windy. Her shade and curtains, her shade and curtains were flapping back and forth. A big storm must have ripping on off the bay because it sounds really wild outside. Lots of times, her mother liked to go for walks during storms. But Emily and her father would usually just say, yeah, okay, whatever, have fun, and stay in and eat cookies and read by the fireplace. Actually, no, they will start by reading, or Emily will sit in the big blue easy chair and draw. Since her parents were both in Cantonese, they spent a lot of time reading and doing research. But Emily could almost always talk her father into playing a couple of wheel games. Instead, they would they would jump around and make a lot of commotion. And because her father was pretty uncontaminated, he would genuinely knock over a lamp or some candlesticks or something. Her mother didn't really approve of video games. But whenever they got her to give the Wii a try, she would get hooked and play for about 2 hours straight. The rain was coming down even harder now, and she was glad she was indoors. The shade and curtains looking like they were doing a real shadow dancing together, which was kind of cool, but maybe a little creepy too. Emily wanted to stay under the covers, but the wind was pretty cold. Besides, some rain might blow in and get on her computer, and that would be bad. So she dragged herself up and over to the window. Now, there wasn't any lightning, but she could hear cracking sounds as a tree branches broke. Every so often, a forearm bailed out, too, and she hoped no boats were caught in the storm. They knew lots of people in Bailey's Cove who fishing for a living or were lostmen, including her friend Bobby's father, and it would be really dangerous if any of them were out there. It took some effort because the wind was so strong, but she finally managed to pull the window shut. Wow, she said to Josephine, that's a really big. She stopped when she saw that her cat was suddenly standing absolutely upright on the bed, with her fur ruffled up. Hey, what is it? Josephine just stared past her, looking at Walton and lonely, with her tail straightened up in the air. Maybe there was a signal or something out there. Whatever it was, her had her cat's full attention. Mostly, though Josephine wasn't that intense or interested in birds, or squirrels, or squirrels, or raccoons, or deer, or even the seals that they sometimes found lying happily on the rocks by the water, getting some fun, getting some sun. Personally, Emily thought the seals were really cool. Once a moose had even showed up in their backyard and pretty much trampling all over the garden. But Josephine would usually just like to learn a lot, take long naps, have some food, and then go some sleep some more. So there had to be something really unusual out there. If she was actually interested, it probably wasn't a bear or a bobcat or anything like that because they didn't really come down to the south coast. But wow, wait if it was, that would be pretty neat. Her father always said that he didn't like nature at all, but he was really into photographing it, almost always film, not digital. And they had lots of framed pictures of loons and deers and stuff around the house. Josephine jumped over to the window sill and began to pace back and forth with her tail whipping from the side to side. Okay, there definitely was something out there, but her cat didn't seem nervous. She seemed uneasy, anxious, worried. Emily squatting out on the storm, but it was too foggy to be able to see anything. Whatever it is, she said to her cat, it'll probably go away. As she turned to go to bed, Josephine meowed so loudly that Emily turned back. What? She asked, a little bit impenitently. Even if there was some wild animal lurking around, it wasn't like she was going to go charging out there then, then there too. Then she stopped. Was something crying for help? She didn't think couldn't she didn't think she could hear anything over the wind, but it felt as though Emily floored. It didn't make sense. But all of a sudden she was completely convinced that there was something out there that needed her. Her parents probably had a rule that she wasn't supposed to go running around outside at the crack of dawn in the middle of the summer. Squirrel, but it had absolutely never come out before, so Emily decided not to worry about it. Besides, she was only going to be in the backyard. After already walking them up early, she really didn't want to do it again. She had worn a pair of green shorts and a Lomart Plain Festival t-shirt to bed. So all she needed was some sneakers and a hoodie. She started out of her bedroom, then went back and swore her sneakers for the LL Bean boots. It was raining even harder than she expected, and she should have put on her slickers first, but she was already soaked now, so it probably didn't matter. Even though it was light out now, it was really foggy, and she couldn't really see the soft glow of the lighthouse up on the point. But she could hear it full on as well as the one way up a halfway walk. That town was a long peninsula with a couple of islands which was connected to the rest of the town by bridges. Her family's house was right on the water and had a tiny flocking dock. Her mother went kayaking almost every morning, and she would paddle for a couple of miles up and down the sound. They also had an old wooden skip, which they usually kept upside down on the lawn because the shoreline was all rocks with no sandy places. They had neighbors on both sides and all along the peninsula, but their lawn had lots of trees, so it always felt really private. The trees meant that they didn't get much sun, but her parents had a wooden deck roof. Anyway, sometimes they had supper out there at a pizza table. Lots of nights. They would hang out on the deck until after dark, unless the black flies got so annoying that they would have to go indoors to escape them. It was so difficult to see through the rain and fog that she stood on the deck and listening. Instead, wind, rain, waves crashing against the rocks. Maybe Josephine had just been acting real, and there wasn't anything out here at all. Maybe. The lawn slopping downhill to the rocks, and the grass was so wet that she was really glad. She was really glad she changed into her boots. There were a few branches of sweat around, but other than that, everything seemed to be normal. She turned around to check every direction but didn't see anything other than grass. A few bushes and their garden where her mother and grandmother had planted tomatoes, zucchinis, and some flowers. So far, though, mostly only the weeds were thriving. There was a low rumble of thunder, and she immediately decided to go back indoors. Besides, she was really tired. She was halfway back to the house when she felt, well, something. She felt afraid, or anxious, or urgent. There, she definitely felt this strange sense of needing to take action immediately, but doing what? Maybe her father was right, and she had just eaten way food, too much food at the baseball game, and now she had like instant disasters, which would make more sense if her stomach hurt, but it didn't. There was a flash of lightning and then more thunder coming from the direction of the hobo, and she dug insistently. Okay, she would just check the log one more time, really fast, then go back to bed. She walked down to the edge of the grass, above the rocks, and towards one of our neighbor's house. She squatted through the fog, but all that she could see was crashing waves and rocks, lots of rocks. The propeller dogs digitally tied to their thoughts, tied to their thought, and bobbing it up and down in the chopping water. A few lost those bows. Other than that, she couldn't find anything unusual or wait, there was something out there. Chapter 4. Emily looked more closely and realized that there was a large white sharp shape on the rocks. Large white shape on the rocks. Was it an old sail? Maybe. Or a piece of plastic of some sort of form. But the shape seemed to be too big for that. What it looked like was an animal of some kind. In fact, it looked like a popular polar bear. Whoa! She was almost 1,000% sure that there were no polar bears in Maine. But what if one had gotten lost and drifted down from what? The North Pole? No, that was just silly. It was probably only some junk that had washed up onto the rocks because of the storm. She took a few cautious steps towards the bunker shape. Was there such a thing as an unborn seal? Waves sometimes bursting themselves. This might be a poor baby whale that had floated into the cold and was too weak to swim anymore, or even a shark, or the propulsion, or something. When the surf was high, all kinds of fish and marine animals showed up unexpected. The coast of the marine was so rocky and uneven, with lots of islands and inlets and coves and all, that it was probably really easy for animals to get lost. But if it was a baby whale or something, it wouldn't be able to breathe much longer. If it couldn't get back into the water anymore, anyone who finds a burnt animal was supposed to call the authorities right away so that they could come out and help save it. Emily wasn't quite sure exactly who to call, but her mother would know because she did, like advisory work for the state senate president when the legislature was in session and worked on environmental issues and all. More worried than afraid now, she walked closer. There were three dead bushes in the way, and when Brent smacked her in the face. Ow, she said automatically. She tried to squeeze her way through the branches, but the bushes were too dense. They were tall enough so that maybe she could crawl underneath them. Instead, she crouches down, buried almost to her ankles in the mud. It was going to be messy to crawl through all of that, and she liked that, and she liked this short. But she stretched it out onto her stomach and swallowed through to the other side. Anyway, the mud felt really cold and gross, and she ripped as much of it off and she could with her free hand. Now she could see that it was definitely an animal out there, a coyote, maybe. She was always extra careful to make sure that Josephine stayed inside because there was there were coyotes sightings all the time. It might be dangerous to go right up next to it and chat, but wherever the animal was, it seems to be hot. She needs to find out one way or another. Without thinking, she whistled a low, sharp whistle, and the animal immediately lifted its head and looked in her direction. Hey, it wasn't a coyote. It was a dog, a big, white, sulky red dog. A retentive, a retentive, maybe. Here, here, boy, she called. Come here, boy. The dog tried to move, but then slumping back down. She wasn't sure if he was just tired or injured, but there was absolutely something wrong with him. Come on, boy, she asked accordingly. You can do it. The dog struggled in to get up, then whimpered and fell heavily onto his side. He whimpered again, and then lay still. Maybe he was coughing or something like whoa, or in all fetching minute. And because of that, he was trapping. She was going to have to go out there and help him. The rocks were very slippery, and it was going to be that much harder to keep her balance in a pouring rain. Emily hesitated, but slowly began to make her way towards the dog. She got her ankle caught in a cover, or fell into the water or something. She wasn't going to be much help, and with no one around to rescue her, she wouldn't be able to rescue him, which meant that they would both be in big trouble. Lightning flashed, followed by another crash of thunder a few seconds later. The dog quivered and so she did. Good dog, she said, trying to sound brave. Everything's okay. She tried to avoid the walks with too much organ only, but keep slipping anyway. Her boots didn't seem to have any traction, and suddenly her legs slid out from underneath her, and she banged her right knee so hard that she gasped. In fact, it hurt so much that she almost started crying. But she almost still when she was, taking a few deep breaths to try and make the pain go away. Okay, falling that heavily had maybe not been a part of her pain or her plan. Oh, sorry, I hurt my leg a little, she said to the dog, and she pushed herself back up to her feet. I'm okay, though. Just hang tight. I'm coming. Not that she was expecting the dog to answer, but it seems probably the wasp was so treacherous and slick that she decided to be smart and take her time. She would lift one boat, sit down cautiously, make sure she was well accordingly, and then with her hands before moving, brace herself with her hands before moving her forward, other foot forward. It wasn't fast, but it was safe. Well, kind of safe in bright sunlight when she could see what she was doing, and it wasn't raining like crazy with lightning and thunder and fog everywhere. Okay, it wasn't at all safe, and her knee hurt a lot, but she still didn't stop, moving slowly and steadily towards him. She was so close now that she could hear the dog painting, although it sounded more like whistling when the next flash or lightning came. She could see some dark speckles on her floor. So maybe he was white. So maybe he was white with black spots. The only thing she could tell for sure was that he was big, maybe 90 or 100 pounds. Hey, boy, she said in a nice, calm voice. She had never had her own dog before, although she had always wanted one, but she had been taught to be very careful around animals she didn't know. Her parents had said that it was even more important when it was a stray animal who might be scared and would maybe snap at whole house. Her owl pulled panic and fell. Good boy, she said, even more plainly. The dog was obviously very weak and in a lot of pain, but he raised his tail enough to wring it out when it once. Between the brain and ocean spray, it was getting even harder to keep her footing, but finally she was close enough to touch him. She reaching out to pat his head, and he licking her hand, his tongue feeling very dry. Good dog, she said. You're a good boy. Another huge wave came crashing up onto the rocks, and she lifted her arm to try and block both of them from the spray. It worked pretty well, but a second wave was in a few seconds later, and they both got even more drenched than they already were. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't see that one coming. The dog's tail trembled faintly. What she needed now was a plan. The first thing she had to do was to move the dog off the rocks and away from the swollen water. Can you get up? She asked, and and snapped her fingers reflectively. Come on, you can do it. The dog just lay there, his breathing raspy and uneven. Come on, boy, she said awkwardly. He still didn't move. Okay, he was way too big for her to pick up, but maybe she could try to pull him a little bit. If she was very gentle, she reached out, feeling for a cord, but there didn't seem to be anything around his neck. So she decided to see if she could help him stand up instead. But when she touched his front leg, he leapt so loudly that she dodged away from him and almost fell off the rocks onto the shining water. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean to do that. I'm really sorry. The dog moved his head towards her, and she was a little afraid that he might bite her, but he just licked her hand again. He was slow and badly, and she rested her hand lightly on his head, not sure what else to do. It seems to be raining harder than ever, and she wasn't quite sure what to do. It's going to be okay, she said. It really is. The dog just laid on his side, gasping for air, and she needed to go to get some sleep. She needed to go get some help. Fast. And that's going to be the end of this book, this part 4 of Dog Whisper, The Rescue. I have read chapter 3 and chapter 4 to this book. Tomorrow, I will be reading chapter 5 and chapter 6 in this book. Until then, I'm Joseph Kurt, and be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow.